This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to show a drama, fantasy, and horror film called Queen of the Damned. With an incredible soundtrack, this film is based on the third novel of the Vampire Chronicles series by Anne Rice, and one of the last performances of the late Aaliyah. Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. Vampires and hard rock are components that the film focuses on. With several elements of music combined in the film, it's only right to feature a singer as part of the cast. One of them is Aaliyah, who played the role of Akasha in the film. Shortly after filming, Aaliyah died in a plane crash, leaving the film as her last project. However, her death also made the film more famous and controversial. After decades of slumber, the vampire Lestat awakens because of the sounds of a hard rock band. He proceeds to go back to the mortal world and enter a musical career. Lestat plans his first kill before barging into a band's rehearsal. The band initially laughs at Lestat for claiming to be a vampire, but are convinced when he shows them his supernatural powers. With this, the band agrees to take in Lestat as their lead singer, and not long after, they gain international success. During an interview, Lestat reveals the existence of his kind to humans around the world. He even taunts other vampires to make themselves known, as their kind should stop being in hiding. However, people think that Lestat is only claiming to be a vampire for clout and fame. Later that night, Roger, Lestat's servant, brings two girls to stay the night with his boss. The night begins in enjoyment, but Lestat's craving for blood is out of hand. He playfully teases the girls in his living room before crawling on the walls eerily. He then reveals his true motive. Lestat attacks the girls who only wish to be with their musical idol. Another person drawn to Lestat and his band's music is Jesse Reeves, a paranormal studies researcher from Talamasca. After hearing Lestat's new song on the television, Jesse becomes intrigued by the song's lyrics and thinks that he is a real vampire. She shares her theories with the rest of her colleagues and claims that the lyrics can lead them to a vampire coven. For years, Jessie had repetitive nightmares and vivid dreams about her distant relatives with blood. It always drew her to paranormal studies, thus her profession. Jessie is passionate about her field more than her colleagues, as she seeks more than what is seen on the surface. It creates tension in her workplace, as her superiors always warn her to limit her to observe. To them, Jessie's excessive curiosity will do more harm than good. Later, she talks with David Talbot, her mentor, who confirms her theory that Lestat is a vampire. All along, David has known of his existence for years and knows where Lestat came from. After showing Jessie several ancient paintings that include black-coated men in the background, he reveals that a vampire named Marius made Lestat. Jessie questions his credibility, but David has Lestat's original journal, proving the whole thing. Jessie excitedly reads the journal and finds out Lestat's very first log. In his words, he was brought to a Mediterranean island in the winter of 1788 by Marius. Marius turned him into a vampire after attacking him and letting the once human Lestat drink his blood. Since then, Marius taught Lestat how to capture their prey and the ways they could be safe, one of which is living in indiscretion, unknown from the world. However, Lestat wishes to live among the humans and be seen as superior to them. Marius then thinks that Lestat poses a danger to their kind as he refuses to live in the shadows. Even before, Lestat has shown great passion for music and is inclined to perform. One night, while playing the violin, a force summons him into an underground chamber of Marius's home. Lestat is stunned to see a majestic place with a statue that seemingly communicates with him. Lestat is under the impression that the statue wants him to play some music, so he abides. To his surprise, the statue suddenly moves, and his music awakens Akasha, the very first vampire. A taste of Akasha's blood renders Lestat unconscious, and the sight of it worries Marius. As the statue is underground, Lestat has no idea of its importance nor relevance. Akasha has been a secret to the vampires who lived after her time. Her true nature is unrevealed to the world for safety reasons. Lestat's music became a medium for Akasha to return to the world. As he found new meaning because of music, he ended up with more than he signed up for. While Lestat is tied to a bed, Marius explains that Akasha is a powerful vampire whose thirst for blood knows no bounds. He warns Lestat of the dangers that Akasha could bring, but he pays it no mind. Later, Lestat wakes up unchained and finds the place trashed. He checks the chamber and finds it empty without any trace of Marius nor Akasha. Alone, Lestat screams in agony, ending his journal on a sad note. Back in the present, Jessie remains unsatisfied with Lestat's journal alone. So, she visits a vampire club. She begins to feel uncomfortable inside after seeing a man being bitten as a vampire preys on him. At the bar, 3 vampires taunt her, which catches Lestat's eyes as he observes them from a distance. Out of discomfort, Jessie decides to leave the club, but the 3 vampires block her way. Luckily, Lestat comes to her rescue just as the vampire bites into her neck. He fights with the 3 bloodthirsty vampires and instantly imprints his superiority, causing the vampires to flee. Lestat confronts Jessie about Marius after hearing her say his name. She reveals that she knows about Marius because of Lestat's journal that he lost in the past. As Lestat walks away, Jessie reminds him of the violin he used to awaken Akasha. He goes into a fit of rage and flies off. At home, Lestat unearths his famous violin, but the sad memories it caused are too much for him to deal with at the moment. After his severed connection with Marius for decades, Jessie's words opened up old wounds. Marius' sudden abandonment still hurts Lestat as he was the one who taught him everything. Jessie brought up the sensitive topic in hopes of learning more about the vampires. She was utterly unprepared for the attack that evening, and saw Lestat as someone different. Although his journal describes him as someone who is viciously vain, Jessie sees through to his real character. In Los Angeles, Lestat's sleep is disturbed by a nightmare, so he checks outside. To his surprise, Marius finally makes his appearance after 200 years. He came to warn Lestat about how other vampires are and about his public profile. Marius also says that Akasha has awakened due to Lestat's new song, pleading with him to postpone his concert, which he rejects. Meanwhile, Akasha arrives at the club in search of Lestat, but to no avail. After making a striking performance that grabs everyone's attention, Akasha starts her plan of destruction. She seduces another vampire to dance with her, only to pull out his heart with her bare hands. The vampires who witnessed it begin to panic, but they suffer the same fate. Akasha starts to use her powers to burn the vampires inside, and not long after, she comes out unharmed, and more alive than ever. On the day of the concert, Jessie pays Lestat a visit where they have a rather intimate moment. More than just her interest and curiosity with vampires, Jessie becomes more drawn to Lestat. She asks him to turn her into a vampire, and she cuts herself to make Lestat crave. As he is about to bite her, Lestat becomes furious and angrily refuses the idea. Because of this, Lestat demonstrates how it's like to live with a constant craving for blood and flesh. Both go to the park, and Lestat aggressively kills a woman on a bench and asks Jessie if she wants to live like that. Jessie recoils in fear after revealing his difficult life. Lestat becomes annoyed by the fact that Jessie saw them as something to be studied on. It also hurt him that she readily agrees to be a vampire, not realizing their quality of life. At the back of Lestat's mind, he would remain a human if he could. His life of killing people for blood is something he does out of the need to survive. Jessie realizes that his life is not so easy after all. Fame and power are just a facade of a dreadful lifestyle. Hours later, the concert is about to start in Death Valley. Thousands of people flock to the stage as the band makes their appearance. Among the crowd are real vampires wearing cloaks, and they give Lestat a threatening stare. Although it means danger, Lestat continues to carry on and perform for his fans. From a distance, some ancient vampires, Maret, Mael, Cayman, Pandora, and Armand, are observing Lestat. Not long after, several vampires attack Lestat on the stage while the fans remained entertained. He manages to fight them off quickly, but he's outnumbered. Marius comes to his rescue in an attempt to stop the commotion, and Lestat thanks him with a smile. However, more vampires fly to the stage to disrupt the concert, but they burn into flames out of nowhere, which is where Akasha comes in, as she majestically bursts through the stage, revealing to everyone that she is alive and ready to rule. Meanwhile, Mael approaches Jessie and they stare at each other with shocking familiarity. Before Lestat could end the concert, Akasha takes him into her home. there, Akasha proclaims him her king, and they become intimate with each other. Lestat is completely spellbound by Akasha, leaving him no room to think about her ploys. At daybreak, Lestat is confused as to how sunlight no longer harms him. He walks out and finds several corpses by the pool and the beach whom Akasha has killed. Not long after, Akasha joins him and reveals that they could rule the world with their combined power. Because of Akasha's powerful blood, whoever drinks it is safe from sunlight. One of the ways that Akasha displays her superiority is immunity to sunlight. Moreover, she could also inflict harm on others by burning them into flames. The scene also shows how Akasha has no regard for human life, as she sees them as nothing more than food. Despite her excessiveness, Lestat is caught up in her spell to think straight and stop her. After the concert, Jessie wakes up in her aunt Maharet's home after years of being apart. She walks into the house's main area and discovers that her aunt is one of the ancient vampires. She explains that Jessie has to take care of herself as major conflicts lie ahead, but that the home is open to her. The other ancient vampires join them to talk about their plan of destroying Akasha. They should drain her blood to beat her, but they think whoever drinks the last drop of the queen's blood will perish. The doors open out of nowhere, and Akasha barges into the room. She introduces Lestat as her new king, and persuades the ancient vampires to join her to conquer the world. However, killing humans recklessly and being in the public eye is against the ancients' rules, so they refuse. Out of disappointment and anger, Akasha orders Lestat to kill Jessie, and he obliges. When Maharet stops him, Akasha throws her across the room, leaving everyone helpless. On the other hand, Jessie is willing to sacrifice her life, claiming that it's what she wants. Lestat bites Jessie, but after drinking her blood, he comes back to his senses and is released from Akasha's spell. Finally, Jessie has found her meaning in life. She is willing to give up everything for the sake of saving her family members. Although she has only been with them for a short time, her selflessness shines through. She also finds comfort in the hands of Lestat, even if it means her demise. However, with Akasha's blood flowing through him, the purity of Jessie's blood reverses the spell. He requests his crown, but Akasha openly gives her arm for him to feed on. Lestat then turns on Akasha and begins to drain her blood. With the help of the ancient vampires, Akasha's power diminishes as they bite on her repeatedly. While Mael and Pandora are killed in the process, Lestat seems to be immune to Akasha's power, leaving him unharmed. While Lestat drains the queen's blood, Maharet stops him and drinks the last of Akasha's blood. Shortly after, she decays and turns into ashes, which renders their plan successful. As Lestat walks over to Jessie to cradle her, Maharet transforms into a marble statue, just as Akasha did in the past. According to Marius, Maharet is just sleeping and is now the queen of the damned. To revive Jessie, Lestat bites his wrist so she can feed on his blood. Sometime after, Lestat and Jessie visit David in his study to return the journal. When David asks what it's like, Jessie offers to make him a vampire, but he replies that he's too old for immortality. Jessie bids her goodbye to David, and she walks with Lestat into the night as they blend into the crowd. Lestat and Jessie's new purpose in their immortal life is undisclosed. Whether they choose to rule or not, they seemingly prefer to live among humans. It's up to them to use the power that they have to determine their new future. Jessie honored David with his passion for the paranormal. Jessie's interest in the world of vampires eventually led her to be one, and now all her questions are answered.
This is all for Story Recapped for today. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Tell us in the comments if you want us to recap your favorite movie. Watch other of our videos showing on the screen and leave a like because it helps the channel. And I would see you in the next video. Goodbye.